Hi, everybody. My name is Mallory St. Clair, and I am Andy's Impact Manager. So I handle all of our internal monitoring and evaluation, and then I also lead Andy's remit to the broader impact ecosystem by providing programming, webinars, and advice on impact measurement best practices. So we're very excited to welcome Jared Adema and his colleagues from the Jobtech Alliance as part of our Pan-Africa webinar series. I'm going to kick it over to Jared to introduce himself and what the Jobtech Alliance is, and specifically what the measurement tool working group is and has produced. So Jared, go ahead, please.
Great. Thank you, Mallory, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. Jared Adema is my name. I lead the results measurement and insights work for Jobtech Alliance. And Jobtech Alliance is an ecosystem building initiative around Jobtech. And we all believe like Jobtech is the future of work, right? In terms of digital platforms that are creating and improving livelihoods for people using the digital, technical, or tech kind of mechanisms. And whatever we do it in two aspects. One of it is ecosystem building. That's why we are here today, where we kind of work together to network and bring people together in a community so that they may learn from each other and partner with each other and just have a good peer network. The other bit is where we just share out, we produce knowledge products from whatever we're doing with the platforms and from all the research that we're doing in order to be able to share out insights that people can be able to use, learn from it, and not make mistakes that others have made. Among other things, in terms of just working with investors and funders within the space to be able to create adequate funds within the space for the platforms that are working, because funds is such a key niche or key thing that is needed to run and operate platforms. And the other bit of what we do is we work with the platforms directly, offering them technical advisory and grants so that they may be able to scale up, increase with the ultimate aim of being able to hire more and get more and more people on board so that they may be able to create more livelihoods for primarily the youth in Africa. And delighted to be here today. Awesome. Why we're here today, we're just here to try and understand whose voice counts when it comes to measuring the quality of work, right? And before we're going to do anything or get into it further, we'll just have a poll to just understand like what is your perception of what should be considered when assessing quality of work, right? So as the poll comes up, just think of two words that comes on top of your mind when you think about quality work in terms of what should be considered when assessing it. But I believe each and every one of us has different kind of consideration of what they look into or consider when considering the quality of work. And the aim of today is, adding the worker's voice to all of things when it comes to quality of work measurement, right? It's not an aspect of removing the aspects around how businesses and the platforms and policies are set up to affect quality of work. Of how then can we get to hear from who are actually on the ground working and selling on these platforms and companies in order to bring in a holistic view and full picture in terms of combining what firms do as the standards, what we have as internal audits, and what we have said in terms of the different towards ensuring quality, and combining it with the actual voices of the people that we hear who are really on the ground working and earning and benefiting from these platforms, right? And the business case for this is it just helps in terms of surfacing blind spots, revealing some aspects that the platform data or audits may have missed. And it also just helps in terms of sharpening the decisions of what is to be done, right? Because when you hear from the people who are on the ground, you're able to know, okay, what exactly is their pain point, and you're able to improve and better build your platforms and companies in line with both what your data says as well as what you're hearing from the people who are using it. And also key is just like it just boosts your confidence as a company or a platform, as it helps you be able to show investments, how investments are improving their livelihood outcomes across the people that you are working and engaging with. And how we have been, we have set up to be able to assess and get the voices from the people on the ground who are actually working, reselling, and earning from these platforms, is we're able to co-create a tool that is co-owned by a number of people within the space, which kind of helps assess and get to know what to ask and how to ask it, and get your feedback in from the people who are working or reselling from your platforms or your company. And the beauty of it being a co-owned and co-created kind of tool, it eliminates any kind of individual single organization bias, right? Because it's pulling from a wide variety of different organizations and leading experts in the space when it comes to future of work as well as results measurement, right? We have people from 60 decibels. We have Mallory, who is part of that working group from ANDE. We have people from JPAL. So it's kind of a widespread of donors, support organizations, and we also consider and taking the company voices. These are the platforms and the companies who are actually delivering this work. And with this, you're able to get it's pulled in from different sources, which not only eliminates a single organization bias, but also just builds trust in terms of this is something that has been assessed by a multiple number of people, and it can be trusted and useful to your own needs. But there's a code there where you can just scan and have a look through the tool as we go by. And yeah, I was just curious to get just a feel from the room in terms of, you can just do a show of raise of hand in case you've been able to engage with the tool or have seen the tool lead at any point, so that at least you may understand the scope to which people have been able to engage with it. And in terms of like what the tool actually covers, so it's kind of built on 4 dimensions, and these dimensions are in line with standards of, such as Fair Work. And, Fair Work, they've been doing a lot in terms of setting up standards to measure quality of work from the aspects of looking at the platform themselves. It also includes work that ILO has done in terms of just understanding the labor market at large and what contributes to livelihood, among other standards that are out there. For example, the Caribou's Platform Livelihood Index, which kind of looks at the entire space and how different aspects contribute to livelihood. And these 4 dimensions are: 1, ideally, satisfaction and growth, which looks into the overall satisfaction that people who are working and earning and from on these platforms and companies are able to say they are experiencing, looking in terms of whether they're able to gain more skills, not only skills at large, but skills that are able to help them gain a better future earning potential. The other bucket looks at income and market sufficiency, looking in terms of, is there adequate work for one to do when they are available to do it? How much are they paid for the inputs that they're putting in? How does it contribute to the overall livelihood or income sources? And just how resilient does it make them in terms of finances, in terms of meeting emergencies when emergencies rise, right? And then the other bucket is looking at working condition, just looking at whether the hours fit their day-to-day needs or preferences, whether they feel safe on the platforms, feel respected, and if the platforms and companies are offering an equal and fair treatment across board, regardless of gender, age, religion, or all those kind of aspects. And finally, it's just like a bucket that looks into management and representation, which is people understanding the terms of reference or the contracts that you're sharing with them. Are people able to raise issues and issues be addressed? Do people have a communal or a shared voice and representation across board? And the beauty of this tool, as I shared earlier, apart from it being co-owned and co-developed, it's the aspect of it being free, right? You can be able to take it up. You don't have to pay any cost to get access to it, and you can be able to just use it all for your own uses. It's quite adaptable depending on the context that you are in. So you can be able just to go through it, modify it here and there where need be to align with your needs and the needs of the people who you work with. And it takes less than 15 minutes per respondent, right? So it also takes into consideration the time that your end users, your end beneficiaries are spending on it, right? Because it's good to consider their time as well. And finally, with time, as it keeps on growing and it keeps on being adapted more and more, we'll be able to have like an African benchmark data set where you can just come and see where you compare to others, so that you can get to understand what you need to do or what you're outperforming and so on and so forth. And to make it more practical, this is just like some of the questions that are there. And together with my colleague here, Muigai, we're just going to do a quick really dummy for a section of it, so at least you can get a feel of how it is like, and what is kind of asked and how it's asked the way it's asked. Great. So assuming you decide to do it via a phone call, this is how it may go. So hi, Muigai. How are you doing today?
Hello, hi. How are you?
I'm doing well. My name is Jared. I'm calling from Uber's customer satisfaction department, and we'd just like to assess your experience working with Uber. Do you have a few minutes for me to go through a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
Great, awesome. So the survey is brief, just takes less than 15 minutes. It's voluntary and it won't affect any of your standing or engagements with us. And we highly value your privacy, and all your responses will be kept completely anonymous. Just to start us off is just looking in terms of your overall satisfaction and experience working with Uber. How satisfied are you overall with your experience with Uber? Would you say you're very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, slightly dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied?
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. Maybe to your response is, neither satisfied or dissatisfied.
That's interesting to know. Just to probe further, what could we do as Uber to improve your experience with us?
Sometimes I feel like I could work more hours on the platform. Sometimes Uber, the app, I want to work, but they tell me I have to rest. And they black me out. So I wish there wasn't any limit for the amount of hours I can work.
Thank you for that response. And just looking at your skilling and how you've been able to get different skills, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the statement that since you started working with Uber, you have learned skills that have helped you grow, develop, and get a better paying job in future? Will you strongly agree to that statement, somewhat agree, neither agree nor disagree, slightly disagree, or strongly disagree?
I would agree. I feel like some bit of growth over the years.
Thank you for that. So that's just a quick demo of how that may look like. And as you can see, you are able to tailor it, to tailor the intro blur, to tailor the different questions depending on what your platform really or your company really offers, and also tailor it to actually what really fits the workers who you are engaging with. And just a few things to point out is you realize that most of the things are structured in a fixed kind of manner. And the reason why they're structured that way is to be able to ensure that the same kind of question is phrased the same way across different respondents, right? So that it may kind of reduce any bias of different phrasing to one respondents compared to the other. The other bit you realize is we were reading out the answer options. This is just because we're trying to ensure like it's within a 5 lighted scale, so that at least in the latter end, when we're building and growing the benchmark more and more, it will be quite able to fit into the kind of benchmark that will be built on, right? But you can decide to tailor it and decide to use 1 to 5, where you tell somebody 1 is very dissatisfied and 5 is very satisfied, according to your liking or your preferences. The other thing that you realize is when you look at the tool, if you're able to open the tool, or if you've had a look at the tool in the past, you realize there's only one open-ended responses that we have recommended the tool. The reason why we did this is we realized that if you ask follow-up questions for each and every closed-ended question, it first of all takes a lot of time. And from the pilot, as we'll see later on, it doesn't add a lot of context compared to just asking it at the first. But at the same time, you're free to add in open-ended questions depending on what is really key or what your department or your company is working to address at the same time. Yeah. The other set is just like you can have a look at it. It's a bit of questions around working condition. And you realize there's one question that has very large responses to read out. So that's kind of a rubrics question. And with it, you can, whatever we usually typically recommend is for the enumerators to just read the question, get the open-ended verbatim from the respondent, and they, as the researcher, are able to map it up across board in terms of which of the 5 levels they deem fit. So this is also just like a view of how the question looks like when it comes to working conditions. And finally, when it comes to management and representation, these are the questions that are there. Right? I'll just pause there for you just to have a brief of it. And as I do so, just also like to, you realize there's a demographic section at the end. The reason why we kind of advise you guys to ask it or to gather it, it's because, you know, it's good to understand which demographic is facing which kind of aspect, or which demographic is advancing or benefiting more in what kind of aspects, so that at least it may help drive your decisions towards targeted aspect of things. Great. But in most times, you'll find that for those you're reaching out to, you already have the demographics, so you just need to look for a way in terms of how you can be able to match it to your customer information once you do the survey. Great. Awesome. And you might be asking yourself then, who is this tool used for? Right? While it was ideally built with a Jobtech perspective or aspect in mind, where it's kind of useful for platforms or companies so that they may be able to understand and improve the quality of work that they're providing to the workers that are working with them. It's also good for support organizations, as it will help them know, okay, with this platform or company that you're supporting with, the issues this and this, and they can be able to tailor their support and resources to be able to address that kind of issue. And with donors and investors, it's kind of just key in terms of helping to verify or, you know, amplify or really see the impact that your funds are really driving to. But other than that, it can be used beyond Jobtech. You know, as long as you're engaging with people who are engaging with your company or your platform to be able to generate livelihoods for themselves. And at this point, I'll just pause to hear from anyone in the group if this is something that you'd like to use. Any volunteer?
Hi, Jared. Yeah, I think it's a great tool. And so I'm just right. So would we be using it right if, for example, we set up quarterly survey, you know, and survey sample size of our installers on a quarterly basis, just so that way we're getting, you know, very structured feedback on the thing could improve. Would that be correct way of using?
So the cadence of how often you do it, I think it ideally depends with the resources that you have as a company, and at the same time, the duration that it takes between you having the responses in, addressing the concerns that were raised, to then doing the next one, right? So I think you can do it quarterly in as much as you have the resources and in as much as you're able to address all the concerns or aspects that raise within the quarter, right? But it's kind of, for us, we kind of advise people to do it on an annual basis. But if you're able to do it more regularly, well and good. But doing it monthly might be hectic given resources and also just like adequate time to address some of the things that may spark up.
Great.
Thanks, Chine, for that. Great. Awesome. Moving forward, now that we know what the tool covers, we were able to pilot it and test out a number of things with it, and also we were able just to, with that, revamp it and get the tool to where it is at the moment. And we were able to pilot the tool thanks to Children's Investment Fund Foundation, and thanks to Challenge Fund for Youth Employment. We did the pilot in Nigeria with 2 platforms, and we were able to do it with third-party data collector 60 decibels, which kind of also helped in terms of, you know, them being a third party, they do this a lot. They already have the pool of enumerators who are able to do it, and given that they're a third party, respondents are more comfortable just to share their responses out. And we were able to reach out to 281 workers, you know, which spanned out from a pool of blue collar workers who are matched to jobs, and all the way the other category of the respondents were creators who are using platforms to be able just to pitch for them to sell their products online. We tried 2 methodologies. One was a phone interview, which bore good fruit, and we kind of ideally attributed to the aspect of, you know, that's the human touch and the human nature. And we also tried like online surveys where we sent the survey or via email to a number of people, which didn't turn out well because it had low completion rates and engagements. But you can use whatever methodology of data collection depending on how well your systems work, right? So if you're a company that engages with the workers via calls on a regular, you can decide to use the customer center to do the calls and get these responses. If you have a platform where people engage with a lot, you can decide to put it as a platform pop-up so that people can fill it and proceed. Yeah, but this is what we what we did with the pilot. And before we go further to share what we saw or what we learned from the pilot, a poll is going to come up just to get your view in terms of what do you think drove workers' perception of quality of work most from the pilot that we conducted? Was it certain genders, or was it certain age groups? Was it the percentage of income that they earned from the platform that contributes to their overall livelihood? Was it pay fairness? Was it safety? Was it respect? What do you think drove workers' perception of quality the most? Yeah, we see most of you say the percentage of income earned from the platform, which is good. We see others say pay fairness, safety, and respect. Great, awesome. So this is ideally good. It's in line with what most of you have said. So whatever we found was an insight, or what stood out for us is the aspect of quantity equals quality, right? What does that mean? It means like the proportion that a platform or a company helps an individual get is directly proportional to whether the worker is able to attribute the platform to offering more quality, right? Where we saw people with people with more than half of their income coming from a single platform, attributing higher percentages of quality aspects compared to those who had 0 to 25%, which is an aspect of people want more work to do. A statement that attributes to people want more work to do, so that at least they may be able to engage more and be able just to experience the beauty of your company or your platform more and more. Other than that, we found other findings that we found that were interesting to us is the aspect of, the platforms that we interviewed are generally offering quality work to the workers who are working and engaging with them, which is a good show, regardless of, them earning up a small amount of income from them, where we see 1 in 10 users earning more than half of the total income from the platform. But this is also a sentiment to how the job tech space looks like, where we get people doing multiple gigs so that it may contribute to their overall livelihood, which is the total sentiment that we have in Kenya, in Africa. But other than that, we see like the aspect of fairness, in terms of people being treated equally, received a high score from most of the people. The aspect of being paid enough for the amount of work and input that they put in was also highly ranked, as well as safety and respect. Exception. So there is a question on chat. Just to, yeah, that's it. What gives more meaning in terms of showing impact of sufficiency of work? Is it perception or a certain benchmark income that can be compared with national or global standards? I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but in terms of the sufficiency of income, it's just ideally, because when you look at the question that we asked in regards to working conditions, here it is. So in terms of sufficiency of income, whatever we asked is, in the last 3 months, how often have you experienced situations where you were ready and available to work, but you did not have an opportunity to work, right? So in terms of sufficiency, it's ideally an aspect of supply and demand, because you find in some cases where you have adequate supply, that is the people who are willing and able to work, but the kind of demand of that work is kind of limited, right? And different platforms do different aspects with that in terms of trying to ensure the balance of who gets work depending on the number of work that comes in, such that each and every person has an equal opportunity to be able to get something to do within a period, rather than giving all the bulk of work to one person. So that's kind of what we have seen. Great. So to Michelle's question in terms of how this might be similar or different than Fair Work auditing system. So ideally, when you look at Fair Work system, it's primarily based in assessing how a platform is set up and what the platform does in terms of offering quality, right? And our tool, it's not a replacement of that. It's an aspect that kind of contributes more to that in terms of, okay, this is what Fair Work have done in terms of their auditing of the platform's offering. And this is now what the people working and earning on the ground are really saying, right? So it kind of then builds up an aspect of providing a holistic picture in terms of, okay, this is what the audit on the platform or about the platform says, and this is what the users and the people who are working and earning from the platforms or companies are really saying. And then now with that, you're able then to, see if everything is aligned or see if there's any kind of misgap or misalignment between the two, right? So it's not, it's an aspect. So the similarity aspect of it might be in the different kind of buckets in terms of what is considered, because that then helps you in terms of comparing what is the platform assessment and what are people really saying on the ground. But the difference is that, while the Fair Work one is focused on looking at the platform, mostly the tool that we are proposing is focused on looking at the worker themselves.
So I think the Fair Work system actually does base its ratings on worker responses, like they also call them and reach out to them. But I think where I see the difference is it sounds like this one is more like out of the box, like a company can just grab this and do this internally at any time. And you can probably cover like a wider workforce versus with Fair Work, they're doing like random sampling. So I think if I understand, maybe that's the differentiation here. Like this is something that you can just take internally by yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of, is this adaptable to African context more? Ideally, it's adaptable to not only African context, but can also be used outside African context, in as much as you're engaging with people who are generating livelihoods from your platform or company. Awesome. And this gets us to the best or most interesting part from where I stand from. We have one of the platforms that we did the pilot with, Chinwe, who's the founder and CEO of Installer, which they have been working with us for a while. It's a very great company with great initiatives. And we're just going to hear from her. She'll just come share a little bit about who Installer is and share about why they decided to join the platform, anything that stood out for them, and what they intend to do next. So let's give a round of applause as we welcome Chinwe to share about her experience with the pilot. Chinwe, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jared, and everyone from the Jobtech team. I'd like to use the opportunity to thank you guys again. Jobtech was very instrumental to us succeeding, from the very early stages of our startup. So what we do at Installer basically is, on the one hand, trying to simplify energy access, and then on the other hand, creating jobs, through the power of the sun. So this is my personal philosophy, that the power of the sun can only not solve our electricity challenges on the continent, but it can also create jobs. So we founded the startup, which is basically training solar installers, aggregating the installers that already exist, doing a lot of skill gap identification and helping them upskill. So on the one hand is mostly training solar installers and skill gap identification, helping with upskilling the installers, especially at the last mile. On the other side is, building a digital platform, which is very much where our innovation is. to connect, right? To connect these trained technicians to solar projects. That way, we're helping solar companies save costs on movement of internal teams. We're helping solar installers gain visibility, flexibility, and also earn on the platform. And then for the communities, we're helping them gain trust on solar technology because they then have a network of installers who can support the installations in their community. So in a nutshell, this is what we're doing at Installer. So back to the topic of the pilot and our interaction with the platform. I think it's a great tool that has been developed. Like I said earlier on, it is something, maybe quarterly is a bit too much, Jared, you're right, but I would see if we can use it on a biannual frequency. The reason is because, our platform is constantly growing, right? Today we have a network of 1,700 installers gigging on the platform. 6 months ago, it was maybe about 1,300. So it's growing, and it has a life of its own. So it's important that we're getting the voices of the people who we're serving to then see how we can improve our service. Because, sometimes we get lost, and as we could see in the response, that the income looks like it's the most important thing, right? And if you asked me, I would say, oh yeah, income, what people are earning, are they earning a livable income? But I think that there could be a lot more things, right? So we could be able to get information around how we're drafting a safeguarding policy, for example, now that we're also focused on increasing the female participation in the clean energy space. Are we looking at other things that, are particular to the women other than the income? Women who are working in highly cultural communities where maybe it's seen as a taboo for a woman to climb a roof, for example, right? We're very much working in African settings. What are those things we are paying attention to that supports her, because then she could be vulnerable? We also see that. So then again, particularly with the women. I think maybe that's a feedback for you on the tool. It's very general, very broad, which is great. But maybe do we want to put some type of gender specific questions, or do we want to ask questions in a way that it gets us to think about the women in particular and the things that could be more specific to them, particularly in a male-dominated sector, right? The sector is still very much male-dominated. People do not trust that a female solar technician could do the work. And this is something we struggle with, comfort. Particularly in a male-dominated sector where people don't trust, like I mentioned before, and we're struggling, right? We're having to see the practicalities of this struggle on a daily basis, because when we're now forced to match the girls with a male technician for her to be able to earn, especially in the rural location. I mean, in the cities, it's not too bad. People are more aware and more welcoming, and see it as a great thing. But in very rural location, the experience is not particularly welcoming. Another thing as well that stood out for us, or I would say it's more specific to us, is because our work is project-based, sometimes it then affects the frequency of the earning, for the type of work we do. So then It then tells me, gives me information on, okay, is there a world where we're able to aggregate, or a world where we definitely know we need to work on increasing our demand to throw into the pool. But then again, the reality we see is the clean energy space is still up and coming, is still developing, and we are sort of disruptors in the space. We've come to say, oh, there's a new way of working, trust us, so, all of this then affects the volume of work we're able to bring to the installers. I think it's a great tool, and we've learned a lot, and the insights helps us to rethink how we're doing things and constantly improve and innovate.
And is there something that you're going to you intend to do next following the findings that you got from the tool?
So it's in the demand, like I was saying, because it's project based, right? We're not the one of our struggles today is we don't have enough demand. We have more supply than demand on the platform, right? We have a network of 1,700 technicians, and we're serving, I think, today about 60 companies who trust us daily with their installation. So the reality is we don't have enough pie to throw into the pool on a daily basis. So we need to constantly work on increasing that demand, so we're getting more work to the installers. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for that.
So something around the skills, the training. So we do know that the installers value very much the skills and the trainings they get on the platform, because most of it comes to them for free, because we constantly have this partnership with the ecosystem to constantly upskill, basically following the trend of the solar technology. So once something is changing, we have to retrain, upskill to make sure that the guys are able to do the work. So we know very much that, from the insights, is that this is appreciated. The upskilling, is appreciated. Another thing as well is they are happy to be part of a community, right? Because we have created this community and network of installers, and we even see the collaboration outside of the platform, right? We see them. So within the community, we see them talking about things that does not really concern us, but and they are learning from one another. They are supporting one another, and I think they value this network.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much, Inoue. So how can you get involved, right? So feel free to adopt the tool. As we said, it's free and open. Under 15 minutes per respondent. You can adapt it to your context, to your platform, to your company or your sector. Or you can use it if you're a support organization or a donor. You can also just use it to be able to see and gauge how the quality of your portfolio looks like. And even as you grow the benchmark, feel free to contribute to the benchmark with the data that you share. We do value privacy a lot. So anything that you share will be kept strictly private. You'll still be the owner of it. You only share aggregated and traced bits publicly within the database. That's how we call all of you to just join the conversation, join the everything that you're doing, so that we'll be able to grow livelihoods in Africa and beyond. Right. And with that, you're just going to have the final poll, given that we still have time. And just thinking about everything that you've heard from the call, what we'd just like to understand, how do you see yourself using the tool? Right? Do you see yourself picking up some of the dimensions and seeing if it fits to the current things that you're doing? Are you willing to reach out and connect so that we may see how we can partner to help you with the tool or just get to trust the tool? Are you going to try out a few questions with your folks to see if it works and such? So just like a quick poll here so that we may just like get to share about what you are looking forward to do after this session, and also just like extra feedback in terms of how useful was it or any other feedback. We just want to open the room for any questions or ideas or suggestions that anybody has.
Hi, Jared. This is Michelle from Northwestern University. Thanks so much for sharing this. Yeah, this is very cool. I love anything that has to do with kind of getting, more worker voice and like representation in platforms. I did have a question. I'm curious if like you had worker feedback about the tool, like whether there are responses about the design of it, like better ways to implement it. Yeah, maybe if you could say more about that process. Thank you.
Great. During the pilot, because with the pilot we kind of testing out many more open-ended questions. So that's one thing that we learned from the workers or respondents themselves in terms of many questions doesn't really add value as much as it just like takes more time, takes more of their time. At times they don't have anything to say about each and every kind of question that you've asked. So that's one feedback that we got from them, and as such we reduced from having a lot of open-ended questions to only one open-ended question at the beginning. But as I said, anyone can just tailor it and add open-ended questions where you deem fit. The second thing that we realized from the pilot, or just hearing from the respondents themselves, is earlier on the questions around equal opportunities. It was kind of it was really hard for one to identify where they should lie, right? Because the answer options that were there before, they were kind of not mutually exclusive. So with that feedback from them, we were able just to refine it further and ensure they're mutually inclusive. The other thing this one we did not have, but we just like kind of perceive given a comparison between like the phone survey and the online interviews is the aspect of depending on the nature and engagement that you have with the workers, an interview might be more ideal rather than a survey. But that is kind of very context-based, depending on how you engage with the platforms and so on. Great.
Hi, Jared.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Bernard. Yeah, and I think thank you so much. It's great feedback from the pilot. I know one thing, like initially, one approach we used to probably front is looking at, and I know we are still designing some investments, and one way that we've been looking at how to measure the quality of work, I know we throw in a KPI like the amount of money earned for the period and how that compares with probably the minimum wage of that geography. As part of, would that lead to satisfaction, or throw in that as part of the quality of work? And then again, we've also been looking at the duration of like the gigs. Are you able to get them repeatedly over a period of time? I know I don't know if they were, because I was looking at the questionnaire. I know they were asked differently, like the proportion of your income and I mean the proportion of your income from this platform in respect to your total income. Do you think those would also have any impact based on the experience you had administering this tool?
For the latter, yes, in terms of the regularity at which people are able to get work. So whatever we did during the pilot is ensuring that we consider those who have engaged to the platform at least once in the last 3 months, right? So the reason for that is what you've said in terms of, at times people haven't engaged because there's not adequate work in there, right? So we look at the pool and just try to understand people who have engaged recently. And in terms of the earning speed, so whatever we kind of considered was the emergency, the financial resilience aspect in terms of being able to raise at least 5% of the annual GNI, gross national income per capita, because that's kind of what's kind of typically considered as ideal enough for an emergency that arises. So ideally, it's kind of also just a mix in terms of getting to understand like who was engaged with the platform over time, which in turn then just advises the 2 points that you've raised. I'd just like to hand it over to Mallory.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Jared. And again, please feel free to reach out to us one-on-one. Jared put up his contact information, but also we will send out a recap email to this webinar. And again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Again, we will share these slides and we will send out an email recap. So thank you very much, everybody.